the dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota are committed to developing and nurturing the next generation of world-class racing drivers. Because if you can dream it, we can do it.
Welcome to a circuit which seems to be so very, very fearsome, so very, very interesting to watch, something which is going to be a test for the drivers, and they no doubt know that this track is one which they will have to have the utmost respect when they go and drive it. It's one of the very few figure-8 circuits in the world, and when you have what is a Tatuus FT-60 Parallel Race, you know you have to be up there and working hard to make sure that every single position counts, to make sure that every single moment is going to be yours. We welcome you live here to a Raceline broadcast production. We welcome you to World Pro Racing. We welcome you to this parallel race from the wonderful Highlands Motorsports Park here in New Zealand. A very aggressive circuit, which seems to have all of the makings needed to have a very interesting race for you today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of those watching around the world. It's Jake Sperry here in the commentary box. As ever, Justin Mifsud on the cameras for us here today. And of course, our chief race steward being Adrian Fagaio, and of course around that as well, George Muscat doing all his job as well, actually as race steward, race director being Adrian Fagaio as well. Moving over to 15 minutes of practice though, to begin with here at what is a very fearsome track here, this Highlands Motorsports Park circuit. It is all about pace. It is a very fearsome track full of undulation changes and fast chicanes and not much room to make sure that everything works out to get yourself correct. But what this track does offer is a very entertaining lap from the driver's I expect, as things tend to go out. But for those of you who are all watching here for the first time, here with World Pro Racing, here with Raceline Productions, you know that these drivers are going to be absolutely on it. They've had to qualify here today in these brand new Tatuus FT-60 vehicles. They have been pretty much the big new toy on the block, so to speak, in terms of rFactor 2, and just how brilliant that rFactor 2 has started to become more and more over the course of the last year or so as drivers look to get themselves out on track. 15 minutes worth of practice here today. So take you on board with Alon Day for the moment as he opens up a lap. There's this very fearsome right-hander where you're always trying to put the power down as much as you can through this long 180-degree carousel-like right-hander as you make your way through to the next section of the track. You've got yourself lovely triple apex where you're slowing all the time before you hit the left and try and put the power down as much as you possibly can. Under the bridge, you head for the first time. Bank left, which is always going to be very difficult today. You've got to be nice and straight to get the power down because you immediately head into a double apex right before you head yourself through another series of left-handers before you think about where do I get myself through. This turn 11 corner, very wide, a lot of opportunity to lunge, a lot of opportunity to dive before you then make that push forward through these next sections of the track. The next corner, it's oh so fearsome. It's deceptively quick here. You try and carry as much speed you can up over the hill. You even get a little bit of air time as you go up, down over the bridge. And then you've got another left-hander to try and navigate and work with. Down the hill again. So you then get this beautiful, what is 120 degrees right-hander, and you're always turning through this next section as you go through, as Alon Day makes himself a good run through the final couple of corners, and his lap is all but complete. This lap really does go by very quickly around here as we get ourselves pretty much into practice mode at this point in time, which start right about now. So official practice has now just started. 13 drivers here today will be looking to try and make their charge and make their presence felt as they all look at their practice times and hope that they have got themselves setting the pace at the moment, like Sir Sheldon Scott Muscat looking to get out at the moment and try and get out onto track quickly as possible, and making sure that those lap times are going to be there quickly as they all wait at pit exit. And it's Chris Osley who will be the first driver who will be able to get out onto track and have that opportunity to go out and set representative flying lap times here. That first chicane is going to be very, very tricky to get right on the opening lap. It is a very narrow chicane. It is all about flowing speeds, and it's going to be all about who can carry momentum, as Osley does run ever slightly wide through the opening stages. We do have quite a few drivers who will be looking to try and make some pushes. You cannot look past the driver who is not yet out on track. That is the driver who is in 11th, that being Jurne Simoncic. He has been on hot form with World Pro Racing. He has been very much unbeaten since I've spent my time here in this commentary box, and he knows exactly what he needs to be capable of doing. Other drivers to keep an eye out on: fourth at the moment when it comes to sessions they start, Luis Felipe Capamanjan is always going to be up there, going to make a charge, as the driver who is theoretically 8 at the moment and just heading out of pit road right now. That's Vlad Tokarev, who could very, very easily put some very nice daylight between himself and the rest of the field. Anyone else to keep an eye out on? Well, it's the New Zealander himself, Tom Satterley, who did not have the best of runs in the FT-60 race only a couple of weeks ago. We want to try and find better improvements from what was a disappointing result for him. He'll be looking to try and find a few improvements there, as he currently finds himself as the last driver at the moment, but representative lap times have not yet been set at this point in time. But there are some really, really interesting battles on a 22-turn course, which really does wind and run through so many different areas of this circuit. It is all about trying to build the momentum. I think that this circuit, while it is going to be about who can get very nice runs in the opening sections of laps, for example, Eric Chandra going out to start a lap at the moment, it's going to be even tougher for those drivers because they are going to need that high downforce for corners like this one that Chandra's going through. This very, very tough corner, which is going to be absolutely killing those outside tyres on the left-hand side. So you've got to make sure that you've got a very balanced setup to work here today around a track which is going to be very demanding, and overtaking opportunities, I think, are going to be a little bit at a premium here. I think qualifying is going to be key as you try and make yourself a run around. It seemed that from unofficial practice times that there might be a little bit of a disparity gap here today. It is a tough track to work your head around. There are going to be a few places where I think that drivers are going to come unstuck, and I think there are going to be drivers who want to try and prove exactly how much pace they have today, those who haven't necessarily had much race action. Alon Day, though, sets the first representative lap time. It's a 1:23.466, which seems to be the case at the moment, as off goes Stoyan Barbakov, and that was not where you wanted to see that happen down at turn 11. Just got himself a little bit too much in the wrong position. Andrea Rizzo going a second, 1:26 flat. So that already tells you just how difficult this track is to get correct. Already, we're talking about a difference in times of about 2.7 seconds as Satterley goes to the top of the timing stands on a 1:23.2. But you talk about the legacy of a vehicle like this, not often talked about here, these Tatuus FT-60s. These are very, very interesting cars, Formula 3 inspired and effectively in that spec. But on top of those styles of vehicles being run, you've got to talk about just how important a series like this is for the young and upcoming generation. This is effectively one of the big winter series, so to speak, summer series in the New Zealand continent, which has absolutely fantastic racing. And to talk about legacy with sim racing as well, there is one certain driver who has found himself with some very good results over the race that's happened this weekend for them. That, of course, being a certain Igor Fraga, who, of course, was a world's fastest gamer. He has found himself doing very, very well, as Vlad Tokarev has gone to the top of the timing stands, first man to break 1:23. First driver to break the 1:23 barrier, 1:22.8. Currently the quickest time at the moment, out 13. Right now, Tomasz Vark has moved up into 4th place, though, at the moment with a very, very good time, a 1:23.4. Good enough to be half a second off the pole position at the moment, as Tom Sadlerley does find improvements going over the line and, in fact, ties the time. So, well, we said that it was going to be maybe a little bit of a wider spread field, but nobody really found themselves expecting that it was going to be as tight as it was at the moment to start practice with 10 minutes to go. The fact that they are tied to the very thousandth of a second, but the fact of the matter is that Tom Sadlerley has set his time second, so therefore is second at the moment, which is going to make life very, very difficult for the way that things are going to be run for him. So he's only got to find the smallest, minutest margin. And around here, the smallest, minutest margin could be very easy to find, as Vlad Tokarev does find it, 1:22.6. I'll be very happy with that time. You talk about drivers who are going to be looking to try and find just a few improvements here or there, and for the time being, just seeing a little bit of side-by-side. It's Chris Osley there. I think he almost ran together with another driver out on track. I believe that was Stefan Elfgen, who he very nearly ran into. Elfgen currently classified as being 9th at the moment in practice, to 1:26.3. His quickest at the moment. So we'll see how Stefan finds the improvements here today in terms of the racing, as Tom Sadlerley goes to the top of the timing stands, 1:22.548. Of course, practice is not necessarily going to be classified as a representative run here. I think a lot of drivers will be thinking about saving a little bit of time. There's qualifying to come along after this, as Elfgen actually gets finding the gravel through what is that very, very tough right-hander come the end of the lap. It's the final overtaking opportunity, turn number 20. You don't get much of a run afterwards. If you expect to see any late overtakes, that might just be the place where it happens. But very close to seeing some of those battles. There is improvements, and that's Stoyan Barbakov, who moves up into 5th place overall on a 1:24.1, and that is 1.5 seconds off of the quickest times possible. So a lot of disparity here. 5 seconds splitting the top 11 at the moment. That is in 11th position currently. Florentin von Schmidt, who is there in that 11th place. And that is going to be a very, very tough challenge for Florentin to go and find some time. He needs 1.2 seconds to find himself closer to the next one, as he goes around actually at turn number 20 and does a nice little pirouette and gets a little bit of contact as well. Which will not be very, very helpful in terms of what was wanted. And that was actually Tom Sadlerley he just ran into. So that won't be exactly what is ideal. Out on track is Jurne Simoncic and also Raimo Cooley, who will be looking to try and find a few times here as Cooley heads through this very, very nice section of 6, 7, and 8, I do believe, is out on track. 7, 8, and 9 even out on track. Corners come fast, corners come quick. Got a small kink at turn 1 immediately starting this lap as he looks to try and think about putting the power down, heading himself towards turn number 11 out on track. You've got this nice fast sweeping section, and then you're immediately onto the brakes. A little lock up there on that inside left. That won't be doing the tyres too many favours for a 20-lap race that will be coming up very, very shortly, of course. Just 6 minutes and a little bit more spare change to go here in this practice session, as drivers will be looking to try and find those various improvements out on track. So only not long to find exactly what's needed for drivers who are doing 1:22s, 1:23s. Maybe they've got 3 laps that they're going to find improvements, looking to try and make sure a race stint certainly works out, certainly finds itself with a very good run of things. As just looking at those times, Sheldon Scott Muscat, they're in 6th position at the moment. Currently, they're with a 1:24 flat, 1:24.054 at the moment, trying to find just that small slither of time. 300ths only needed to jump to the next level, but these drivers will also be sussing out racecraft as well. If they find themselves near drivers on track, they may want to try and work out, okay, where do we go out to make a move? It's a very early start to this race for a lot of drivers. In fact, it was very early for me. I almost missed the broadcast. here at 8:10 in the morning UK time. So it's very, very interesting, actually, how drivers will respond. Of course, the tactical challenges that drivers are going to find on their bodies through doing various battles, various races, is going to be quite interesting, especially for those who are going to be awake, alert. They're going to have to be pretty much on it very, very quickly. For someone like Tom Sadlerly, it's prime time broadcasting for him. He'll be looking at this going, oh, well, this is going to be an easy evening race for me. I'll make sure that I will challenge myself the way that I know how out on trackers. Thomas Schwark moves back into fourth. Simoncic was up as high as fifth place as Sheldon Scott Muscat goes to sixth on a 1:23.6, which will be very useful in terms of his time. He's getting closer. That gap is down to 1.1 seconds to those at the front of the field. Ambient temperature here is 16 degrees. Track temp 29 degrees here out on track. So it's a relatively cool one here. So they're going to be making sure that for the relatively cool conditions, they are going to be working hard to make sure the tyres stay in a nice operating window to work, because Jerne Simoncic decides, well, I am tired of sandbagging. I'm tired of waiting around for my lap. And with about 4 minutes to go here in practice, Jerne Simoncic finds himself at the top of the timing stands. 1:22.516 will be a very, very good representative lap time, and there's not much more that you can argue with that. That was solid work from a certain Jerne Simoncic. So we'll see how these times will continue to develop here as this racing continues. You've got Simoncic from Sadlerly, Tokarev, Alonde, and also Tomasz Wark as well. They're rounding out top five, split by just 0.6 of a second for the time being. Just seeing Raimo Cooley go off as well. That was just coming out after the very, very treacherous left-hander over the bridge, which is always going to be a tough place to get things all sorted, to get things working correctly. And of course, it is also a very narrow pit entry as well. So you make sure that you file off to the left if you do need to come down onto pit lane, if you do need to find anything that is going to be very difficult with your race, so to speak. But again, I am very, very worried with how things are going to go into a very narrow and fast turn number one. I've just seen Stoyan Barbakov go through that section, and just looking at it from the angles I've got available to me, it is a very ferocious section of track, which I believe every driver will be looking at and saying, well, the opening couple of corners I don't think are going to be places really for overtaking opportunity. But you never know with this track. You've got a chance maybe into the left section. It doesn't seem like there's too many long overtaking opportunities I've seen side by side into the corner he's just gone through now, that blank left-hander, and it seems that banked corners are always very difficult to get right. And of course, it seems like it is clear sunny skies for the weather here today, so no real worries, so to speak, for rain. That is a drift through turn number 11, and I wouldn't say that's the most quick way to go around a corner, but it is certainly a very entertaining way to go around. As keeping an eye on Stoyan Barbakov, he is within 1.2 seconds now here of faster times, and certainly found improvement over the course of the racing that we have seen. Raimo Cooley going up into 12th place, jumping Florentine von Schmidt in 13th overall, so that's going to be useful. One driver who's not set any times, though, over the course of practice so far, he's had 2 laps under his belt, is Luis Felipe Capamangian, who has been knocking on the doors and was very, very close to finding a victory the last time we had racing action here with these Tatuus FT-60s with Raceline broadcasts, and that was all down to the fact that Jerne Simoncic got very, very close. And talking of very, very close, hello, Luis Felipe. You got yourself up into what is 3rd place on a 1:22.590. The top 4, this is going to be an interesting race, split by 1/10 of a second. This is going to be mighty, mighty close for them today here in these style of vehicles. They all know what they want, and they want some very, very strong racing out here today. So I would say you toss it up with a coin if you want it. You split it 4 ways, if that's even possible how to do it. So you hope that there's going to be some very entertaining racing action, as Capamangian has a very big off there with just 40 seconds left to go. When it comes to practice, after practice, we will be heading over towards qualifying, and the 10 minutes that will precede that, these tyres will need to get themselves up to temperature. They will be looking for that track to evolve. They will be looking for that chance to find that magical time. You've got drivers like Eric Chandra in 9th place, who's moved within 2 seconds. Chris Osley has moved all the way back down into 10th place now. Such been a disparity in those times, as the top 6 split by 6/10 of a second. You got the top 10 split by 2 seconds, and then it seems like it is larger gaps the further back you go, like Stefan Elgin, likes of Andrea Rizzo, Raimo Cooley, Florentine von Schmidt, all looking. Practice times will start to come to an end, though, as the session timer does expire here on World Pro Racing, and with Raceline broadcast, we'll be looking over at qualifying in the next couple of moments here for the parallel race, and exactly how strong that these racers are all going to be looking to push themselves here for some rFactor 2 sim racing, which always seems to be right up there at the very, very pinnacle, as they all go out and make those big challenges that say, can I be considered one of the best drivers out there? It is races like these, which if you can win, start representing yourself, start leaving behind a legacy to be made. So now here's the mad scramble. See who gets themselves to pit entry the fastest. Alan Day, Sheldon Scott Muscat looking to get out there at the moment, out onto track. We'll see who will be first at the pit entry line, and it is Tom Sadlerly. They will wait. There's the green light, and they will be allowed to exit pit road for 10 minutes here. They've got to get the tyres up to temperature incredibly quickly, and they have to make sure that they are absolutely on it from the first moment that they go. There are no margins for mistakes in qualifying. You need to be in the right position, hoping that you're not going to be affected by any wake of any kind for these sorts of laps. There isn't much wake when it comes to these vehicles. Sometimes a tow may just be beneficial, but it is very, very telling to note that the likes of Luis Felipe Capamangian is just behind Tom Sadlerly out on track, so he will have the best benchmark out of anybody here out on the road. So we'll see how all of this will play out. Drivers, for example, who are looking at position, Jurnej Simoncic just weaving his way through the traffic. He'll be looking to try and find himself with a very good run later on in terms of this. And Vlad Tokarev, well, he'll be one of the last drivers out on track to set a representative flying lap, as he'll be one of the last to go out there and leave pit road. But let's focus with Tom Sadlerly then for a lap around this Highlands Motorsports Park circuit, because this track is going to be very interesting. A lot of elevation change, surprising amount for a track which seems very much on the surface like it is flat, but it very much is not. So through the final corners and over the line, very close to that wall there. You've got to be absolutely running to a limit as he goes through the small kick into turn 1. Then there's 2, 3, 4, 5, the bus stop, so to speak, before you head into this long carousel, turn number 6. Always going to be testing these tyres. He looks to try and get as much as he can on the exit, nice and neat through that section though. On the brakes he looks then for what is 7 and 8, and now turn 9, which is all about that balance of the vehicle under low speeds. Get the power on the exit, banking turn number 10, trying to make sure that this all works for you as you put the power down as early as you possibly can. 11 and 12, and now looking for the left of turn 13 here as you go up through the gears, and then you get this big braking zone. Turn 14 reminds you of Circuit of the Americas ever so slightly in that turn 10 corner that they have, where you hit the brakes and then you got that long kilometre straight. But then you got here this fantastic right king, and then you're over the bridge, down again, and immediately into the braking zone. Such a tough braking zone when you're fighting against gravity through that section. Down once again you go, or you hit turn 20, and then you got turns 21 and 22 then, and already almost a third of qualifying has already scored complete. Here's Tom Sadlerly over the line. First representative lap time is a 22.5 exact, and moves almost 3/10 clear of Capamangian just behind. So we'll see some other times coming in. Osley 2.3 seconds off. Tomasz Vark 1 second off on a 1:23.5. So that's some good lap times then in the early stagings as Barbakov goes fourth. Sheldon Scott Muscat, that was not a representative lap time at all. Andrea Rizzo, sixth place there with a 1:25 flat. Jurnej Simoncic, not a good opening lap there. Only 3 seconds, well, 3.5 seconds actually, off the pace. So he needs to find himself that magical lap as the likes of Florentin von Schmidt, 1:28.5. They are going to need to get those tyres up temperature very, very quickly here. So they don't have many laps. They don't need many that are working really quite well. So we'll see how this one all plays out as Andrea Rizzo's actually just gone for a spin. Not what she wants, but ultimately what she will get at this point in time. But this is going to be a very, very tough qualifying for quite a few drivers at the moment out on track. So we'll see that this is going to be a case as Vlad Tokarev actually has just moved up to second on a 1:22.720. He had been complaining about, I might be getting a little bit of damage coming out of pit road. I've got to be careful about that, but it seems it's not affected him too much. In second position, top three, changes Capamangian. Sadly found improvements, as did Capamangian. It was minor from Tom Sadlerly. It was major from Luis Felipe Capamangian. The gap 13 thousandths now at the front of the field. It is mighty, mighty tight at this point in time. Barbakov goes up to fourth at the moment. Chandra now up into sixth place. There's Jurnej Simoncic coming over the line, and he goes third. 1:22.653 is not the greatest qualifier in the world, but what Jurnej Simoncic is and what he can do is that he can race pretty much better than anybody else I have seen in rFactor 2 during my time. If you want to be one of the best racers, you've got to study Jurnej in terms of how he decides to go out and run a race on the track. So, Sadlerly, Capamangian, Simoncic, Tokarev, and Barbakov, your top five here with half of qualifying already scored complete at the moment. Then it's Vart, Chandra, Osley, Rizzo, and Elfgen rounding out the top 10, which is split by 2.6 seconds in this 14-car field. Someone who hasn't set a time so far is Alon Day, and you're not going to set a time if you're going to slide like that here at the Highlands circuit. So you've got to make sure that things are going to work out for you. It's not if you're going to slide around. It's going to be very, very difficult. Simoncic bumped down to fourth place as Vlad Tokarev moves into third. 1:22.588. Brilliant time and brilliant improvements there in terms of that lap time. So they're going to be looking at maybe, well, there are improvements to be had as the track does look to warm itself up, does look to rubber itself in. On no, with Florentin von Schmidt looking to try and find some improvements. 5 seconds off of what is needed at the moment. Down the hill for turn 20. Very nice, very neat. Very pedestrian, actually, through this section. He's not very comfortable with the balance of that vehicle. Heading through the final couple of corners. It's very much a drive-by-numbers sort of things. He looks to put the power down. Conservative through every section, but he does find a good chunk of improvement, though. Well, that is a 1:26.1. It does not find himself any places, but he is 3.6 seconds off of pole position. I think he can be very happy with the fact that he is that close at the moment. Sheldon Scott Muscat moves up into 7th place, though. Was 12 seconds off in qualifying. Now he's brought that gap very much back down to 1.5 seconds at the moment. Here, just 1.5 seconds needed. He's half a second off the next position, which is Tomasz Vart, who he himself needs only 100th. Only 100th. It doesn't seem like much as he crosses the line. He does find that 100th, and in fact, he finds a lot more. He found 6/10 of improvement, moves to a 23 flat, very much cements himself in the 5th place. Does Tomasz Vart, so he will be very happy with that time. With 2 minutes to go, Tokarev so close as he even finds more improvement. 1:22.517 is close, but he needs just 27 thousandths for pole position. It's a mighty tight qualifying at the moment. Simoncic onto a flying lap. He will have 2 attempts to get the lap correct, as the likes of Tokarev will go out, get one more attempt. Capamangian out on track. Sadlerly also out on track, and in fact Sadlerly is making his way through turn 20 and looking for the final couple of laps. He is being slightly held up though through the final corners as the driver he was seeing in front does dive down in onto pit road, and that was Florentin von Schmidt. So we'll see Sadlerly across the line, does not find improvement that time, but he does have 2 laps to get those improvements in. What will the likes of Alon Day been able to do. Kapamanjian making a run to the line and hopefully finding a swathe of improvement as he gets himself no change in time as he crossed the start-finish line. So not ideal for him at the moment, as likes of Eric Chandra in 8th place look to try and find a bit of improvement. Vark finds more improvement though, moves 3/10 behind pole position and will not go any quicker when it comes to this run of racing. So that is brilliant lap times from Tomasz Vark. Very much cements 5th place overall, but the likes of Allende, he still hasn't found a lap time to call his own. Tom Sadlerly out there, out on track, making his way out of the very nice right-hander. Kapamanjian will not go any quicker than what he's got. Tokarev and Simoncic out on track. Simoncic on a flyer at the moment. Oh, he's blocked on his flyer as well. That was not ideal. He found himself blocked by Florentin von Schmidt, who is a lot slower than what Jerne Simoncic is, and I bet Jerne will not be too happy about finding a driver through the carousel and ultimately not having himself going any higher than 4th position. Here's Sadlerly over the line though. Does he find himself some improvement? Answer is no. So it seems Sadlerly won't find anything. Kapamanjian is out of time. Osley moves up into 8th place, as he finds himself now 1.6 seconds off of pole at the moment. He's moved 8 thousandths clear of Chandra. Barbakov gets himself over the line. He's now 9/10 though. He builds his gap to Sheldon Scott Muscat to just 6/10. Tokarev makes his way through 10, 11, 12, 13. The small sweeping left here is going to be that turn 13. Then you got 14 here. That's fantastic braking section here. Now you got 15 and 16 coming up very, very, very swiftly as there are improvements. Allende moves to 5th and they're through as timer expires. Kapamanjian not close enough. Sadlerly out there on another lap. If Tokarev finds improvements, Simoncic's lap time was still quicker. Somehow it was still quicker. He found a magical final couple of sectors there, did Jerne. We thought he couldn't find improvements. He did. It won't be for the position, but he brings himself within a 10th. That shows you how much he had in the bank for what he needed. Here comes Tokarev though, over the line. Does he find the improvements that he wants? Yes, he does. He goes to pole. 122.422. Sadlerly, you've got to respond. Final couple corners for Tom Sadlerly, the New Zealander, trying to get over the line. Sadlerly does not find improvement, and it's a shame. 122.437. He did go quicker, but 16 thousandths slower. He was come the end. Allende is out there on a lap. Eric Chandra also is, as is Florentin von Schmidt, out on track. We'll look at Allende though, who makes himself over the bridge, looking towards the left-hander. They are allowed to finish their lap times that they start. Turn 20 comes up on the board, and well, can you find exactly what is needed? Final couple corners looming here for Allende, who looks to get over the line. Is there going to be any improvements? 4/10 off the pole at the moment, and he did find minor improvements, but he is still 3/10 off of what was needed overall. One driver left on track is Florentin von Schmidt, making his way through the sections. He needs 1.4 seconds to get past Stefan Elfgen. I am going to be mildly surprised if he does find it, as he makes himself a very cautious way through the final couple of corners here. He gets himself through the right-hander of turn 20. This lap is going to be abandoned. So, Tokarev from Sadlerly, Kapamanjian, Simoncic and Allende, your top 5, as we're going to step aside for a couple of moments here with Raceline Broadcasts and World Pro Racing. We'll be back with more after this.
You have a dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota are committed to developing and nurturing the next generation of world-class racing drivers. Because if you can dream it, we can do it.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to this, the Tatuus FT-60 Parallel Race here from the Highlands circuit in New Zealand. It's Shakespeare in the commentary box, as ever. Justin Mifsud on the cameras. Your chief race director for today is Adrian Fagayo, and your chief race steward is George Muscat. We are getting ready for racing in just a few moments' time. The final warm-up coming in here on this fantastic racing circuit. It is a fast, it's ferocious, it's got all of the trimmings that it needs. It's going to be a very tough 20-lap race here today, and if qualifying was anything to go by, the top six all stand themselves within a very good stead to maybe come away with a very big result. It's going to be a tough challenge here today, especially that drive for what is going to be opening sections out on track, especially as some drivers get it wrong. Sheldon Scott Muscat has just lost it under the bridge, and he finds himself without a front wing and says, you know what, I'll reset back to pits. I will try again just a little bit later on, so to speak. But talking about how close qualifying was, well, when you had 3-4 drivers split by a tenth, this is going to be a very tough challenge. Some brilliant drivers here today are going to be trying to make sure that they get their best. Cannot look past one certain driver who found the time. It was Vlad Tokarev who was quickest overall at this wonderful circuit. And of course, we welcome all of you who happen to be watching here on YouTube Gaming and also on Facebook as well for a bumper weekend of sim racing action, which does include the action that you see here today on rFactor 2. You've got some 24-hour races going on here and there across this sphere. But of course, you can subscribe to the World Pro Racing YouTube channel if you absolutely want to see more racing like this. And I tell you what, if you've got 4 drivers within a tenth of a second through qualifying, it is very much encouraged that you see just how this goes on and any further racing that will happen in the future. But we are about 5 minutes away from the grid-up procedure, from the formation lap, and from the start of 20 laps worth of racing. That run to turn 2, 3, 4, and 5 is going to be the one which I think is going to be worrying these drivers here. It is a one-line suit-all section. It bottlenecks up. It has the potential for massive, as Florentine von Schmidt will demonstrate heading into this section. You go from a big, wide section into what is a very much one-line suits-all bottleneck. Some may say that it might just been easier to slow all these vehicles down through this section because you're running over 200 Ks heading to that place where you really don't slow down very much through the chicane. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a concertina, which is not going to be very nicely dealt with, I think, around this circuit. And I think these sim races are going to have to be very, very open and honest with themselves if they do run into issues. It does remind you a little bit of Portland's race circuit and just how difficult that is around the opening laps. You always see an IndyCar that someone goes around, and not quite often, and in fact more often than not, it seems to be Scott Dixon that finds himself around and avoiding absolutely landmine in the opening section. So, in terms of what is needed from a track like this, you need a lot of patience. There's a lot of undulation change. This is a track which you do need to be pretty much alert to what the car is doing. There's not many long straights, but the corners do flow, and you've got a fast section in the middle of the lap, which deals around the figure 8. There's not many figure 8 circuits in this one, of course, the most famous of which happens to be that Suzuka race circuit. Other figure 8 circuits do apply in pretty much every single sense of the word. You look at other places, though, where you need the lap to come together. You've got that very, very technical midsection of the lap where you've got the bank left hand, and you go under the bridge, and you've got 7, 8, and 9, which comes into play. You've got this turn 19 in 2021, 22, which Stoyan Barbakov is going through right now. This is the run to end the lap. It's going to be very difficult if you get a car nose down the inside at 19. Stop the run through 20, 21, and 22. It's always going to be a tough challenge here today for those to get it right. Currently in warm-up, it is Luis Felipe Capmangian who finds the quickest time, 1:22.7. Definitely not the same times as they were doing a little bit earlier on when qualifying was on the line. There are going to be some subtle differences between what can I do for a qualifying pace and a race pace. Of course, you put more fuel in the car. Those lap times are going to be just that little bit slower around a circuit like this. So keep an eye on the fuel, keep an eye on the tyres, and especially is those tyres at the moment, which seems to be the big talking point overall. You talk about those tyres, one driver above all is able to save tyres better than anybody else, and he seems to be the driver who cannot stop winning at the moment, but he is the driver right at the back of the field in terms of warm-up with a very unrepresentative 2-minute 1 lap time, and that's Jurnej Simončić. So Simončić always seems to have that favourite air about him from those who drive, but Capmangian looks incredibly quick. Vlad Tokarev has been awe-inspiring qualifying. And of course, you got the New Zealander, you got the patriotic Tom Satterley, who will be looking to try and find himself up there and representing this style of racing in what is the Toyota Gazoo Racing New Zealand style vehicles, which are going to be very interesting to see how they go about. Maybe it seems that for these style of racing, for a vehicle which is all about the future of racing, the future of racing always seems to come through these style of vehicles. You may just see the future of racing come through it this time by in terms of sim racing on rFactor 2. So we are just a minute and under from the end of warm-up, start of the gridding procedure here today, as Sheldon Scott Muscat gets the hugest tank slapper. He's done well to save it on a 360, and he's found one of the few places where there is a little bit of runoff area, so to speak. It's a very compact track here at the Highlands circuit. You've got this lovely outfield section, which feels very nice, but ultimately there are other sections of road which do not share that same feel. Quite a lot of the track does get a street circuit vibe about it, especially up over the bridge. You are looking at every which way, try and avoid trouble, avoid dramas as much as you can. But as we all know here, this circuit is going to be one where 20 laps could come and go very, very quickly as warm-up comes to an end. We're going to put ourselves over into our race session at the moment at Highlands Motorsports Park, and this is going to be a very interesting race to behold. It is 6 who could potentially have that opportunity, but as we all know, every driver wants to be right up there at the very, very top at the moment. So we'll see how this all plays into a factor at the moment as they get themselves ready to end warm-up, get themselves ready to go right up into where they want to, and that is race procedure at the moment. And it looks like it could be disaster for one Vlad Tokarev, who I think just got himself out of session at the wrong time. He was the pole sitter, so that will put Tom Satterley on the pole at the worst possible time. So Satterley will be starting this one from the front. It will be second for Capmangian, and then third for Jurnej Simončić. Fourth will be Alon Day, Tomasz Vark fifth, and then it's Barbakov in sixth, Muscat seventh, and Osley in eighth. And it's Chandra and Rizzo ninth and 10th, Elfgen, Schmidt, Von Schmidt, and also Raimo Cooley. Satterley won't mind at all. He's got an extra position, and that is a huge shame from Vlad Tokarev, who took pole to be pretty much now out of racing contention for this one. It did not work out for him, so it will be paced behind Tom Satterley, one formation lap, and they will need to get those tyres pretty much up temperature. Satterley often is quick around these laps. You see a lot of drivers be quick as they look to try and funnel themselves very nicely. This 13-car grid looking to race the 20 laps. See how this plays in. traffic shouldn't be too much of a factor here today. I think you'll see a couple of drivers maybe go one lap down or so. We won't see that until the latter stages, though, as Thomas Sadley makes his way through the long 180-degree left-hander. Next up will be coming under the banking, trying desperately to bunch this field back up again, like Kapamanjian, Jerne Simoncic, Alon Day, all looking to try and get those tyres up to temperature. You're also not just trying to get the tyres up to temperature in this situation, you're trying to get the brakes working as well. Of course, these brakes can go cold, and the worst thing you want is cold brakes. Very, very fast opening section, and then suddenly, I've got no brake, I've got no runoff, my race is over already, and I've only done 5-6 turns. So that's not what people will be wanting here today, but the good news with a field as it is the fact that there is going to be not much time to wait on that starting grid. We'll see how that one will all play out for these drivers. They make their way through towards the final sector of the lap, up and over the bridge, which is seemingly iconic of this circuit, and down into the left-hander of turn number 17. Got yourself a small kink left here of 18, which counts as a corner into 19. And then you start hitting the grid stalls, which are going to be so important. And of course, these 20 laps, there's pride on stake. Everyone knows what they want. Everyone knows they want to be a winner here of this race. Sadly, Kapamanjian, Jerne Simoncic, they are the top three at the moment as they search for their grid stalls and look to line themselves up. Sadly, will be in control of this field as he looks to try and just very, very calmly his mark, and he is absolutely ace on it. Kapamanjian, I think, absolutely nice. His marked well. It is the traditional Aussie NZ style, as I believe it's going to be Stoyan Barbakov, who needs to just inch his car backwards. He overshot his grid stall by a fair margin as the last drivers hit their marks. So this is going to be where it's interesting. This is going to be where it's going to be made. Sadly, Kapamanjian, Simoncic, Alon Day, Thomas Fark, Stoyan Barbakov, and there's the green flag. Let's get ourselves to racing here. Sadly, gets a good start then. Kapamanjian immediately trying to go defensive here as 20 laps start. And look at it, Simoncic trying to go to the inside. Sort yourselves out early. It's one line suits all through this section. Side by side, Barbakov's going to have to take to the grass. Behind in sixth place. Oh, huge incident. Bang! Barbakov, he'll go straight back across the circuit, and there's a big incident there at the back. It's called Cooley and Rizzo and Elfton as well. And it seems that drivers are in all sorts of trouble. Barbakov, no rear wing. Rizzo, no rear wing. No front for Raimo Cooley. It's a huge incident to start this race. Not what was wanted. They cleared themselves up, though, at the back, but it won't be any issues for Savali at the front, who leads this field for the opening half a section of the lap. Kapamanjian second, Simoncic third, Bark got up one into fourth, Osley all the way to fifth through all of that, Alon Day back to sixth, Muscat seventh, Chandra in eighth, and then from back 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, it is the walking wounded at this point in time. So not ideal for those who start this race up overall. It is going to be disastrous in terms of the way that is run. But sadly, trying to get a gap early, already up to 0.7 of a second, though, at the front of the field, as one lap will be very swiftly score complete. Osley under pressure, though, coming out of turn 19. Alon Day all over the back, looking to try and get that position back once again. And not quite there in position just yet. You won't have a run into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They'll go through the S section to start another lap as they go through and look to try and be as aggressive as they can. Got to be careful there, Alon Day. Just moving ever so slightly wide through that section, struggling a little bit with balance in high speed. Often it is very difficult through that section of track. So very much, it's all about what can you do in these early stages. Got to time your runs, get yourself into position. It seems like the gap's opening up as Osley's got himself into that 5th place. He's doing well here at the moment. And no, that's Alon Day. He's gone off into the grass. And he's been joined. He's been joined by Eric Chandra, who went straight on as well. They both came together off the track. Big incident there, both with a mistake. And how on earth did that happen for Eric Chandra, of all people? He was right behind. I think he had exactly the same mistake here. Goes in deep on the exit here, trying to get it around. And, he just couldn't get a car turned, it seems. So that is disastrous there in terms of how that's happened. And it has completely shaken the field. Muscat now up into 6th place. Elfgen in 7th. Chandra back now into 8th place. Von Schmidt 9th. Day all the way back now into 12th. As they go through the second lap, scoring complete. Sadly, then Kapamanjian, half a second between them. Simoncic 1.1 seconds back, and they are checking away from Tomasz Vark here in 4th position. Osley 5th, Muscat 6th, and Stefan Elfgen under pressure then as Eric Chandra seemingly hasn't copped too much damage from that incident. Will now want to try and have this battle as they go through the left and the right section. Florentin von Schmidt defends hard into the left-hander, but he does let the position go, and as such drops back into 9th place and 10th overall now for Von Schmidt, 9th for Alon Day. So he'll be happy with the fact that he's just going to be running around at his own pace. The other drivers are a long way back, a minute and a lap respectively for those drivers still on pit road. But Kapamanjian here at the front, looking to try and stay with Tom Savely heading through this section. They've got lap traffic in front of Raimo Cooley as Barbakov decides, well, it's not worth my time. I'm out. Suspension damage has ended my race. But he will not go any further than that. Savely up over the bridge and down again as the top 3 look to all find themselves with a good chance here of picking up a big race victory. They don't have long in terms of the way that this race is going to be run in order to get the results that are needed. That battle as well behind Eric Chandra, Stefan Elfgen. Elfgen is starting to pull away now in that one, but the gap at the front of the field, 0.4 of a second for Savely. He lost a 10th over the course of that lap. It is easy to do around here. Lose a 10th here, lose a 10th there, but the big difficulty is that long turn number 6 section. If you can't get that corner right, you're going to be struggling for the rest of the lap to get close. And of course, that wake, that dirty air effect, is going to be hurting through that corner, most especially at this point in time, as Raimo Cooley has to dive back into the pits one more time here. Out on track, it's Kapamanjian, so close to making a move here into that left-hand bend, turn 10. Out on track, he was looking to the inside. It was not wide for him to do so. As it's Sheldon Scott Muscat trying to get around Chris Osley. Oh, he's had a huge tag slapper. He saves it. And Osley, who was struggling over this lap, Sheldon Scott Muscat was closing. It very nearly ended in disaster for those. That is a difficult section of track for those drivers. It seems they are struggling to get the tyres up to temperature transfer. But look at this from Kapamanjian, very close behind as they go over the bridge. It was down to a 10th and a half as they now look towards turn 19 out on track. And now it's all about that setup. Can he get nice and narrow? Simoncic also very squirrely as he tries to put the power down as well. He's running similar lap times to Kapamanjian, closing in that gap. They cross the start-finish line once again, get back out to half a second, but all of a sudden Simoncic is just lurking in the mids at the moment. Elfgen is holding up Chandra, holding up Alon Day, who all wiggle. Elfgen struggling out to the final corners here, 7th, 8th and 9th on the road. Alon Day looking to try and get the recovery drive going, and he'll need to find a position very, very swiftly at this point in time, but Elfgen is not in the mood to letting people through at this moment. But there has been a change. Sadly has lost the race lead. Oh my goodness me, he's lost it at turn 6. He got it all shades of wrong. There was lap traffic in front. He got the wall, and ultimately he's been able to keep it in second for the time being. So a mistake from Tom Savely. We missed it here with Raceline Broadcasting and World Pro Racing, but Savely has got himself backwards into second. Simoncic stays third. All of a sudden, Kapamanjian has a second and a half in the playbook to work with. He'll be happy. He'll be trying to break away with all of that. Here's Alon Day, though, in 8th place, trying to get past Stefan Elfgen here at turn 14. He's trying to open it up. It's defended hard through this section. And, oh, nicely blocked, but Elfgen's going to run wide with... that is a vehicle not looking good. That's Andrea Rizzo with no rear wing once again to speak of. I think that her day is going to be done to Elfgen, Chandra, and Alon Day now. They changed the Day into 7th, Chandra 8th, Elfgen backwards into 9th place on the road. But Kapamanjian, 1.7 seconds now over a Tom Savely, who may have some slight suspension damage. We do not know how much it is affecting Savely at this point in time, but Kapamanjian will be very happy with the fact that he finds himself very much in the prime position to try and walk away with this as Rizzo officially retires. We are down to 11 here in this field, but it is now look behind for those in second and third, because someone who has been very quietly putting the lap times together here, as we are on lap 6 here out of 20, is Tomasz Vark at the moment in 4th place. He's not done anything wrong at all, so to speak, by the way that this is run as he goes through turn 14. He has been there just quietly running his own race, hoping that drivers run into issues, and sadly has been the only driver who has, at this point in time, out of the front 4 runners, out on track at the moment. So that's just something to keep an eye out on. What can Tomasz Vark do to close the gap? The battle between Osley and Sheldon Scott Muscat is now up to 1.2 seconds, which is going to mean that that's not going to be ideal for Sheldon. He cannot close that gap down. He does need it to be within a second to have fringes of draft and able to close that gap down the way that he knows how to. Gap stays at 1.7 for Tom Savalli, but he's got to start reeling in a tenth at a time here, getting into the zone, trademark, and find himself any opportunities to go out, find a time, which is very much needed in terms of the way this is going to be run. So we'll see how this plays for Savalli as he looks to try and play the chase game. Yerne in third, 2 seconds back. I wouldn't count Yerne out at 2 seconds back here from Luis Felipe Capamangian. Yerne is so good when it comes to the latter half of the race. He'll start trying to attack maybe Savalli a little bit later on, as he always has a good tendency to play the tyre save game the way that he knows how to at the moment. But you can talk about this though at the moment, as Sheldon Scott Muscat in the battle for 5th and 6th keeps the gap at around 1.3 seconds here, as Osley, slight lock up there into turn number 7, and he gets a little bit of help from behind because Muscat missed the apex, had to try and gather it on the exit. Always tough to gather it up on the exit as they try and go through. Look at how close though Yerne Simoncic finds himself at the moment. He wants to start making moves, and he wants to start making moves quickly here out on track as they go through the final corner, and that gap is tumbling to the race leader. Capamangian's gap, 1.4 seconds now at the front. That was 3/10 over that last lap. Tom Savalli is winding up to try and pull everyone back in. Yerne is just happy to be content on the pace. He'll be happy with where he is at the moment. He's only 2 seconds back. They are pulling away from Tomasz Vark, who now finds himself 2.2 seconds off of the pace. Not ideal. They've got 13 seconds to this Capamangian to Chris Osley. This is a front 4 race. I think even with an incident like to Muscat and Osley, they've got a long day to find any more positions than what they have got at the moment. But it is the front 3 that seems to be the big talking point at the moment as they go on through. They look for their opportunities to attack every part of this track, as sadly does have to try and gather it up, and all of a sudden here's Yerne Simoncic given an opportunity here, looking to the inside. You can't normally get it done here through this left-hander. It is incredibly quick. Simoncic maybe down on the brakes. They came together. Savalli and Simoncic touched as they came through the left-hander at turn 17, and oh my, that is so fortunate there that they did not run into any more drums than that. Simoncic and Savalli collided through that corner, and that was a high-speed incident that drops them 0.7 of a second to Luis Felipe Capamangian. This is exactly what he wanted. The drivers behind fighting incredibly hard together, and then all of a sudden Savalli and Simoncic very nearly running themselves into some very big troubles out here on the road as they go through. Vark running slightly wide in 4th place. He won't be too bothered by that though at the moment. It seems the positions for the lower halves are starting to spread out ever so slightly. Von Schmidt finds himself 4 seconds back of Elfgen. Elfgen finding himself 3 seconds back of Chandra. Chandra 5 seconds back of Alon Day, and Day is a full, that is now 9 seconds behind Sheldon Scott Muscat, who he himself finds himself just a 2.3 behind Chris Osley in his little scrap at the moment. He'll want to get himself into position. So now Savalli's had 2 bits of contact, and Simoncic might want to go again. He gives himself a lot more room this time on the inside, dives for it. Bit of contact again as he tries to go through. It seems like they're fighting for second best, but Simoncic's got it through. Sadly, he's going to try and come straight back at turn 19. It is a dive and a lunge corner, and Savalli made sure of that. He got himself straight down the inside in that final section, and he defends that second place absolutely fantastically. But now another 0.8 of a second in that final sector gets shot, hacked and slashed off. And all of a sudden, Kapamanjian is 3 seconds clear. So I think even if the likes of Jerne Simoncic can get the move done, he will be relying on a mistake from Luis Felipe Kapamanjian, hoping that something is going to work out in favour for what is going to be Jerne's run. Sadly, there in second. We'll be very happy with the way that he's going at the moment. He's had issues, but he's not really run himself into too many problems out there today. But the next section of track looms and awaits for these two in what is the highlight key battle out on track to turn 14. They come along again as Osley at the moment, yes, keeps himself in front. I think he's having a few issues here and there, stays ahead, gap 1.7 seconds. I'm keeping an eye on Osley here. I don't want to see him run into any technical issues of any variety, but I am looking at Jerne. He is very good coming out to turn 10 and through all of that section to go and attack. But it is Tom Savley who knows how to bend this track. And remember, it's Savley who will know these New Zealand style tracks like the back of his hand. He's, of course, very close to a number of the racetracks in New Zealand. They don't get much publicity, they don't get much highlights, but what they do get, though, is some fantastic racing action. As now Tom Savley under pressure again into 2, 3, 4, 5. You can't make the moves through here. What you can do through here, though, is set up the run through the long turn 6, which is not banked, but what you do have that availability to do is really run through the gauntlet and hope that everything is just starting to be all about power, starting to be all about pace, starting to work right in your direction. Close, but not really close enough at this point in time. You look at drivers who are a lap down. That is Raimo Cooley, who's 1 lap down. He got caught up in the instance earlier on. The 2 retirements, Andrea Rizzo and Stoyan Barbakov. Of course, Vlad Tokarev would have made this very much more interesting. He did miss the start, however, which is disastrous for what he wanted. But sometimes that's the way that this has to be played. As again, Tom Savley is put under pressure by one Jerne Simoncic, who is going to be very frustrated at the fact that he cannot find a way through at this Highlands track. It is a tough place to go out and make overtakes down the hill into the left once again. And once more, it seems that Savley just able to gather it up. And Simoncic looking every which way. Now he's trying to open up turn 19 into 20, 21, 22. And the run through this section, it's going to be tough to make a move. And again, he can't quite find what he was looking for. The gap at the front of the field now almost 4 seconds for Kapamanjian, who will be very happy with the way that he's going right now. He will not be too inspired to go much faster. I wouldn't have thought 4 seconds. You win by an inch, you win by a mile. You play the Alain Prost margins sometimes when you come in and you try and race. So you see how this one all works out for these drivers, and actually keep an eye out on a battle a little bit further down the field, because Eric Chandra is not losing to, is actually starting to lose a little bit of time, sorry. Stefan Elfgen, that gap is around 3 seconds at the moment. It could close over the course of this gap. In fact, it does move up though to 4 seconds though. So that one could just increase the longer that this race goes on. It seems it's quiet in the midfield. Osley and Muscat running their own races, but they're having their own little battle of attrition. The issue for Sheldon Scott Muscat is he's got to get within a second, and he's stuck at 1.4. So he's been stuck 1.3, 1.4 seconds all race long. It has been very close. Another look for Jerne Simoncic, lunge down the inside, and he's caught the man at the worst possible time. And you know what, gentlemanly from Jerne, he decides, you know what, I think discretion is the better part of valor. I want to make the move cleanly as they make more contact. They are, though, allowing Tomasz Vark back into the scrap, and that's not going to be what they want. A third member into the car, so to speak, for the podium. 5.5 seconds now, the gap at the front, and only now they start lap 13 out of 20, so they've got not long to go in terms of the way that this race is going to be run through turn 6 and towards 7, 8 and 9 out on track. And it seems like you've got those nice boards there, which you don't want to run into if you're going to go quickly through that section at a breakneck speed. They are designed, of course, to slow down. Turn 10, maybe the place, oh no, not again. Jerne gets himself into the side of Savley, and this is getting a little bit farcical now from Jerne. He's being far too aggressive. Red Mr. said, here's Tomasz Vark. He'll want to be aggressive immediately here. Try and capitalise on the mistakes of the situation. Not going to happen for him as they're running wide. It's going to be one certain Yerne as he goes through. And it seems like Chris Osley's issues have just manifested in the worst way possible in the technical variety. They were starting to be an issue, but that was not ideal. Simoncic now under pressure for third after another very, very 50-50 lunge. And this driving style around this circuit, Yerne is not liking it at all whatsoever at this point in time. Tomasz Vark in fourth will want to try and get himself towards that third position, but there has been no harm, there has been no foul. Simoncic has been able to keep himself in third, but he has just not been able to run the race that he has been very, very happy about. Keep an eye out on as well. The battle for fifth is certainly not over in this one. We're down to 10 runners in this field. It is, of course, Alon Day in sixth, Sheldon Scott Muscat in fifth, and that gap is down to under 3 seconds at the moment. So keep an eye on that. That could very much well change the longer that this race goes. The lead, though, 6.2 seconds. Luis Felipe Capamangian, he has checked out from this field and he has booked himself into the Race Victory Hotel at the moment, and he'll be hoping that his reservation, that he has enough money in his bank to keep that at this point in time. Let's not hold our chickens just yet. The last race we saw very nearly ended with the race leader losing it on his own in the final sections, but Simoncic closing back to Sadlerly once again, who has been very, very frustrating as a driver. When you get a driver as experienced around these sorts of tracks, Tom Sadlerly is, you know that it is going to be a tough challenge to get everything correct. But also keep out this in mind. Stefan Elfgen is falling backwards too, as Florentin von Schmidt has brought the gap down to 2 seconds now in the battle for 8th and 9th. These are the final positions on the leading lap. They'll be looking to try and finish this race on that leading lap and hoping that everything is going to come up sunshine and roses for them at the moment as they look for those laps to improve. Sadly, was the fastest man last time by, took a couple of tenths out of Capamangian, but that's not going to do you any favours. A couple of tenths at this point in time. A couple tenths will not get the job done. Your damage was done early, Tom, when you forfeited the lead in the opening few laps and then found yourself in a titanic scrap with Yerne Simoncic, who is desperate to get by you. But those are the margins that come on in as they go through a little slide through turn 14 for Sadlerly. He does not like that corner. It's the one weakness at the moment in his game. It's that turn 14. Everything else has seemingly been absolutely fantastic. Up over the hill, up over the rise and down again. Of course, there is a different layout of this track if you so want it, so to speak. It's a lot longer. You do avoid that up and down section. You do effectively rise and fall through the hill sections they go through. Once again, Von Schmidt brings the gap down to 1.9 seconds. It seems he's got a consistency value very much in on Stefan Elfgen, who has been running a lot higher in this race than a lot of others. But keep an eye out on Alon Day. He has absolutely monstered the gap down to Sheldon Scott Muscat. It was 3 seconds only a couple of laps ago. It's now down to 1.2 seconds at the last set split. We'll see what that sector split time is now between those two, because Alon Day is on a charge, looking back 5th place after the incident on the opening lap. It's now 9/10 of a second, so Sheldon is a wanted man, as is Tom Sadlerly. Yerne Simoncic has got the bit between his teeth at the moment. Both drivers are chasing down Capamangian in terms of time, but I think Capamangian has got himself into conservation of the car mode, as he knows that he's got himself a little bit of traffic in front of him. It will be Raimo Cooley for the second time in this race. But Tom, now you've got to play the defensive game. You've got arguably the #1 driver in the world at the moment at rFactor 2. You've got Yerne Simoncic, who will want in terms of trying to make this move here as he heads himself through the left-hander of turn number 17, 18 into 19. And I think patience is going to be a key here, because they will look and complete 16 laps worth of racing. There are 4 laps to go here at the circuit, Highlands Motorsports Park, and they will look to try and see if there is anything that they need late. They took half a second out of Kapamanjian, who will be maybe looking behind and saying mistakes. What mistakes? I don't do those. I'm just easing off with any issues that I have to deal with. And here comes Alon Day through the final couple of corners as well in his battle. Not quite able to make the move sorted just yet, but he is lining it up in terms of, can I make a move at any point in time? And for the time being, the answer is a no through 2, 3, 4, 5 into turn number 6. He'll try and widen the corner as much as he possibly can through this section, and if he is able to widen up this corner, he may have a chance 7, 8 and 9, but I am very, very doubtful of that. Von Schmidt as well has brought his gap down in under a second for the final positions in 8th and 9th on the road that can be battled for, so that's going to be interesting. Alon Day thinking of turn 10. Nope, not going to do it this time here, but wide goes Muscat, trying to diamond off the corner, opens up an opportunity, and an opportunity would not be part of the billing. Savely under pressure from Jerne Simoncic. He thought of the move into turn 19. He thought better of it though. This time by at 14 though. Alon Day trying to open up the corner. Muscat makes the mistake though. Can't carry the apex speed. And suddenly Alon Day has a chance here under the toe if he can just run the line good. Oh, don't look at it for it. 15, 16. It's a one-line corner. It's flat out through there as you now look towards this turn 17. Left-hander. Not going to have that one working out for the time being, but second and third still on at this point in time. Stavely and Simoncic coming up to the lack traffic of Raimo. Cooley at this stage in time. Here's the changes though, side by side. Day going at it with Muscat side by side as they come out of the section. Oh, a little tap of the wall there from Muscat. And that's going to do that then. As they go through that section, that is going to be Alon Day back into 5th place. Half a minute off of what is wanted. Muscat there in 6th place, not having a very good run of things, or had a very good run of things actually here today. It's been strong, it's been consistent from him. 8th and 9th, still going at it then at the moment. Their gap down to the 6/10 from Florentine Von Schmidt, desperate to find a way past Stefan Elfgen, as out goes Raimo Cooley with suspension troubles. At the moment, Simoncic is starting to fall back here to Tom Savely. He's got to be careful here. He's got himself not many laps to go. It's 2 at the line for Kapamanjian, who has been driving absolutely fantastically at the front of this field, with second, sadly, the very experienced, so to speak, and then the world number 1, Jerne Simoncic, who has not looked like the Jerne we used to know, the Jerne who's been yearning for victories. Is qualifying, he got blocked, that didn't help him. He wasn't too happy at the fact he got blocked by Von Schmidt. His lap time could have been good enough for pole position. He then had the ignominy, he had issue even, so to speak, of finding himself in positions where he just ran himself trouble time and time again with a brick wall. That was Tom Savely, and as such, 3rd position. He has stayed for the majority of this race. Here looks Florentine Von Schmidt, and is there a mistake from Stefan Elfgen, who just about gets it gathered together? Nice and narrow though through 18 and 19, trying to go around the outside. Not going to happen there at 19. Elfgen is very much wise to it then from Florentine Von Schmidt as they have their scrap, as they go on to their penultimate lap of the race here at Highlands Motorsports Park. But if you start looking backwards, start thinking about what is left, Luis Felipe Kapamanjian has himself a lap to go. Jerne Simoncic has a lap to make the move here on Tom Savely. On the brakes, right-hand corner comes up at 19. Again, nothing doing between these two as they all look to go into their own moments. As that is going to be Stefan Elfgen running wide through turn 6, 7, 8. And all of a sudden, it's going to bring Florentine Von Schmidt into play. Dive down the inside. Can you slow it up? Well, you got the banking to help you. That's a great move. Florentine Von Schmidt up into 8th place there with a magical overtake. Now eyes turn to Jerne Simoncic, heading through turn 6 to 7, 8 and 9, as Kapamanjian has complete control of this race. He has done from about lap 4, lap 5, from the earlier stages of this one. And they're trying to use all of his road taxes, sadly, who ran wide using that extra section of the road, using all that wily skill that he has. They head through 10, 11, 12 comes up the small left of 13 as they run through this fantastic section. Simoncic needs to have a good turn 14. He may think about lunging down the inside. He does. Oh, that's brave down there at 14. If you want that second place. And you know what? He'll have the inside for 15, will he? Or will he have to fall back into line? He's going to fight this every stage of the way. Here's they go through this left-hander. All over the curves. Oh, they almost came together. Up over they go. Capamangia went, no! Savali's into the wall. He's lost the rear wing. And it happened at the final stages. Buck's going to steal a podium. Capamangia was out of trouble all race. And he wins at Highlands Motorsports Park. But it is controversy personified. Simoncic makes contact. It's second for Jerne Simoncic. Tomasz Buck will get third. And Tom Savali is robbed of a podium he so richly deserved in fourth position overall. He limps home to the line. Alon Day will get fifth. It'll be Muscat in sixth. Chandra a quiet race to seventh. And then Von Schmidt eighth. And Stefan Elfgen will be the drivers who come home in eighth and ninth place overall. But it is controversy at the end. They had come together at numerous stages all race long. I don't think there was any malicious intent to what happened, but I think that move did have influences to incidents earlier on. So that is going to be one of the issues that he will deal with. So Tom Savali then, fourth place overall, but Luis Felipe Capamangian, he will be incredibly happy with that race and the way that that has gone, as we will just get ourselves post-race interviews and bring into the conversation Luis Felipe Capamangian. Well, Luis, safe to say it was a quiet race for you. The incident happened early on with Tom Savali. What seemed to happen there that gave you the opportunity for the race lead? Lewis, do you have a copy of you, buddy?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't press the button. Yes, it was a very tight quali, but I managed to start second. I don't know why Vlad, I think some internet connection. But yes, in the second lap or third lap, I don't remember, there was another guy, and Tom just braked so he can crash him, and I took advantage of that.
Well, you definitely took advantage, and then you looked behind, and you had probably the biggest helper in your race being Jerne Simoncic. It seemed that it was all going off behind you here today, but you now start looking at how this race was won. You just pulled out second after second. They effectively put themselves to their own demise. So was it a case of really just running their own race, just really everyone just pushing themselves to a limit and feeling like for you, there was a case of just race management from basically the midpoint onwards?
Yes, for me, it's well, I'm very happy winning Tom, Jerne, that helped me a lot. It's very difficult to beat those guys, so I'm very happy about it. And yes, I took advantage of that. And when I saw them fighting, I knew that Jerne always save tires, so I started saving tires in case he started pushing, so he didn't pass him, and was quite easy.
Well, it's a very, very big victory for you. You must be very excited with the way that this vehicle is playing into your hands. Anyone you'd like to give a thank to after what was a very, very big result for you, Luis?
Yes, let me thanks RPM esports team, Justin, Adrian, for the trust, and I hope we can keep.
Well, we'll hope we'll see some big improvements. Luis Felipe Capamangian then going through with a race victory would be second for Jerne Simoncic, who joins us now in the commentary box. Jerne, we have to talk because of what has gone on over in this race. And let's just talk about getting a little bit boxed in, a little bit caught out. And let's start with qualifying first and foremost, because it seemed that final lap, whilst there were improvements, it seems if not for the block, it could have been pole position.
Yeah, I lost at least 2 tenths, probably 2 tenths and a half in qualifying. But at least I thought to myself that okay, it will be more fun in the race to try to overtake the 4 guys. But then also in the race, strange stuff happened.
Well, a lot of strange stuff happened, but mostly it involved contact after contact after contact. It seemed that no matter which way you went, Tom Sadley was a brick wall for you. Just how difficult is it to battle around here? It seemed that every move you had to go for today was at least a percentage move.
Yeah, it's really like understeer car, especially with the front wear, because front left is really crying here, and the default setup is towards understeer. So yeah, and going into the like longest flat out section with the best option for overtaking is not really viable, because the last corner is barely flat out, but in the dirty air it's not flat out. So if you don't want to destroy the car in the wall, you have to lift, and the best overtaking option is gone. So yes, I had to try everything up to gain the hairpin, and even go side by side through the chicane in the last lap. That was good fun. Yeah, we had some contacts with Tom. I have to check the replay, but I'm not sure. I didn't really feel any contact. Like one time, I thought that there was when he slided, so I just waited for him, even though I hadn't felt anything. But in the last lap, yeah, I'm actually just right now checking the replay.
Well, whilst you look and see everything that's happened, it seemed like it was a race of frustration, so to speak. But before we let you go, it's still second place, though, come what may. Anyone you'd like to thank for picking up a second place?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was not too frustrating anyway. It was good fun, but yeah, thanks. The most thanks go to Luis Felipe for the company, for the chats, and yeah, if I have to talk about the team, it was not a real team event, but still I'm happy with. If you saw the announcement with Burst Esport, I'm happy to be part of that, and it will surely be a huge boost for the future.
It certainly will, and Burst Esports, certainly a team that is picking up good drivers. Has been a fantastic launching point for drivers such as Marcus Jensen, Kazuki Mishima and co, as Jene Simoncic finishes off in second position overall. Tom Sadley ended up in this race picking up only what was a 4th place come the end, and joins us now. Tom, you've probably got to feel like you've been robbed of a podium here.
Yeah, mate. Well, it all started with the back marker. I don't know what he was doing. I guess he wasn't too comfortable with the car, so he slowed down in the middle of the big curve, and I couldn't afford to slow down too much, otherwise I would have got past. Tried to go in, he went left, I went left. I bashed into the back of him, and from there on I had nose damage and suspension damage on the front left, so I was sort of braking on an angled line. Every time I put the brake on, the car would pull left.
Well, it seemed like for you that you were dealing with a few issues. Sorry to cut your thunder off there, but you found yourself in the middle of this race. You found yourself in a very heated, intense battle with Jene Simoncic. It seemed like every time you were going to go too wide, there was going to be a bit of contact here, a bit of contact there. It seems like you have a lot of experience with how this track runs, how to attack, how to defend. It seemed like you had the knowledge to know where to place the car, if you understand my question.
I wouldn't say that. This is my first go at the track too. Ooh. So yeah, it was a good battle with Jene, a few contacts. I mean, I don't know who's at fault for any of them. It was good hard racing, I think. My old friend Jene, it's good to have fun. And one of his taps evened up my suspension damage, so the car became neutral again, which is kind of good. So
oh, well, it's all good. It's all friendly then if you're helping out with a bit of contact here and there. We'll call that. We're trying to improve everyone else. But, Tom, it's 4th place come the end. It's not exactly the result you wanted after being gifted pole position and running into all the troubles today. But anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, just thank the boys at Go Speed Racing. And my boy William, who watched the race on YouTube. I'm pretty sure he enjoyed that. And thanks for the racing guys, and thanks Adrian and World Pro Racing for putting this on. It's really enjoyable. So.
Well, no worries at all. Tom Savley ends up with 4th place come the end, but that brings to an end proceedings here with Race Line Broadcasts and World Pro Racing. There are so much that you can do. There is so much you can see over the sim racing sphere over the course of this week and over into the future. If you have liked what you have seen, make sure you subscribe to World Pro Racing right now and you'll get more great racing action for the foreseeable future. But from, of course, one Mr. Justin Liston on the cameras, our race director, Adrian Fagayo, our chief race steward, George Muscat, and of course, myself, Jake Sperry. It's been a wonderful pleasure calling a fantastic parallel race here today at the Highlands Motorsports Park, and we will see you all very soon.
You have a dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota are committed to developing and nurturing the next generation of world-class racing drivers. Because if you can dream it, we can do it.